Hey guys, how's it going? Sorry, this is long overdue, and I'm sorry in advance if I keep looking between two different screens or I keep looking around because I don't know whether to look at the screen or the lens, but I'm going to try and look at the lens. But yeah, this is long overdue. This should have happened ages ago, but then I kept putting it off, and then exams came. But now exams are over, so I can do it. So I'm going to try and go through as many questions as I can because I tried to do this already and it took way too long. So I'm trying to keep it to 30 minutes or less and just be more concise with the answers. But I'll answer the most common questions first, and then go through like my practice routine and the story, I guess, in a nutshell of how I was learning for the first year of my progress video. And then I'll answer all the questions I got from like my YouTube community thing and Instagram messages. So without further ado, let's go. How many hours of practice every day? Even though I answered this already, 2 to 3 hours a day, every day pretty much. Though during exam stuff, I had to just drop it to focus on exams, academics, because I'm having to go for a foundation year. So I could have gone to a music school and just gone straight into music, but I decided to choose a academic university because I believe that in the long run it will be better. Because I don't think a classical piano degree would. I'd rather have a general music degree and just prioritize performance if I want to, or dabble in other things. So this first year is mainly academic. Like I still do music, but I do a lot of like just humanities stuff because music is a branch of humanities. But anyway, so I had to drop practicing during exam revision to prioritize what was most important. But if I have a free day, it will be between 2 and 3 hours. Maybe a bit more if I'm feeling really good and I want to keep going, and if I'm tired, then I'll stop. But I think 3 hours you can kind of get everything done, and that's enough. Like honestly, for me, I couldn't do more than 3 hours. I don't think 3 hours is like 2 to 3 hours is like the nice sweet spot for me. I think where I can get a lot done, and by that time I'm tired. I'm done. How am I reading on day 4 of my video? I'm using a book from Alison Sparrow, like Learn How to Read Piano ebook, and on there you're in like the five finger position, so your hands don't move. And she put the note names above the notes, so I didn't actually have to know that this note with a line is C, middle C, and this line above it in the space is D. I just knew C, D, E, F, G because it said it, and then it would say the same, B, A, G, down. So I didn't really have to like coordinate my hands because they were just kind of just staying still. So I knew that C would be thumb kind of thing. So that was how I was able to read on day 4 so easily, because I was cheating and I wasn't actually reading. Music background. So I played flute in primary school for a few months. So that's probably maybe where I got some of my advantage from reading, because I was definitely reading the treble clef, but I can't honestly remember anything I did. I just knew that I was playing the flute. I did like a little recital in school, but I don't know if it was very good. But I did do some flute practice in my like adolescence. In primary school, I must have been like 9, 8, 9. But I dropped it because I was a lazy mofo. And I did do drums in like my early teens because I wanted to be a drummer for a couple of months, and then I dropped that because I was a lazy mofo. So I was probably maybe got some of the rhythm problem, like issues or difficulties in piano music, maybe from drums and reading a bit from treble clef of flute. But you have to do bass clef in piano, so I don't think it helped that much, honestly. But I did have a little bit of music background, technically. Okay, so people are saying like too good for like one day. How are you doing the C major scale? How are your hands perfectly like curved? So on the first day, I was ready. I took it out. I didn't just put the camera on. I was playing for like an hour or two, just messing around. And I'd watched videos before, like the whole week before I was studying it. So I knew how to play the C major scale from. If you type in learn how to play the piano, the first thing you do is learn what middle C is. where middle C is, and how to do the C major scale for 1 octave. And I used like Andrew Furmanzik's like the most popular video on how to learn piano lesson one. He literally teaches you like a nursery rhyme and the C major scale. So that's how I could do it in day one because I watched the video. And I had practiced beforehand before that clip, and then I tried like the Zelda Synthesia, like it was literally just like one note, dun, 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 dun. Like you literally there was only a couple of notes, so I just memorized them, and that's how I was able to play like the first couple of seconds. I honestly think anyone could have done it, but some people don't think it was possible. The like perfect posture and curved hands. Well, what can I say? I don't know. I think that must have just been instinct then. If there is natural talent or natural ability for something like technique, I must have had a bit of that because that's how my hands felt comfortable. But I do know from I guess like fitness and sports because I was a personal trainer until I went to uni. Like I'm always studying technique and trying to move in the most efficient way possible. So the same thing with piano. You want to play the notes in the most efficient position possible without tiring your hands. You want to do it as easy as you can, right? And to prevent injury. So maybe there was some subconscious there. And I was obviously studying online videos and how to, techniques like Josh Wright Piano TV, Paul Barton, like Piano TV for information. There were so many good YouTube channels and resources that can help you with like technique things. So that's how I think I had good posture and stuff from the very beginning because I did a lot of research and maybe some natural skill. Okay, so practice routine. What is my practice routine? So I start with sight reading in scales or technique because I decided I want to become a really good reader, not like play by ear or anything because all these classical pieces, I will have to read them. But I do want to learn how to play by ear and dabble in other stuff. But priority is be excellent reader. So I try and sight read every day using the Holy Bible. But there's lots of like church hymns. I don't know if you can see that. But it's like vertical music, so you have to read a lot of notes in one go. And so you're kind of you get used to where everything is, as opposed to something like, I think Bach isn't supposed to be very good because it's polyphonic. There's two melodies going on at the same time. There's too much going on. And then like more romantic music is usually just the melodic line in the right hand and bass in the left. So these church hymns, they give you a nice quick like one page pieces, and you just go through them. I just get through like 3 to 5 a day. I go through them all like a couple of times until I make sure that I've got it fairly fluent. So I retry them. I don't just do it once then stop. And I just play them really slow and try and like get them smooth. But sight reading's key. And then I do technique or scales. So I do Hanon. I did Hanon for a while just because I haven't had all these years to develop my finger strength. So I did use supplemental tool of Hanon to work on that. And now I'm currently my finger strength is okay. So I'll just do it to warm up, or when there's a specific problem in a piece of music, maybe there's like a trill with 5 and 4 fingers, so weak fingers, I'll go use my Hanon book, see what drills there are for like weak finger trills and stuff like that. But maybe in the future I'll just for fun try and get through all of Hanon page 1 and try and play them all like for the ultimate technique. But right now I just do scales because I'm trying to prepare for grade 8 exam. So they just have all the scales and arpeggios and stuff needed for grade 8, including like staccato and legato and first inversion, second inversion for arpeggios, and scales a third apart, sixth apart, scales and thirds. Those are hard. But yeah, so anyway, technique. So it was about the practice routine anyway. Sorry, I get off tangent, but so first hour is devoted to sight reading and technique. Then the rest of the time is repertoire. Ideally, I think for a classical musician, you'd be doing one piece from each era. So one Baroque, one classical, one Romantic. So for me, I'm doing the ABRS grade 8 syllabus. So I'm doing Bach English Suite A minor, the Sarabande and Gigue, Beethoven for the classical piece, Opus 79 Sonata, first movement, one of the easier ones but still quite hard. And then Chopin Nocturne for romantic, because love me some Chopin. And then, yeah. And then as I get better at some, I'll spend less time on the ones I'm good at and just kind of refresh them, play them briefly once or twice through. The ones I'm having difficulty with, I'll hammer through and work at until they get up to a better level. So right now, the Chopin's done. I just play it to keep it topped up. The Bach's pretty much done. I just have to practice to get it refined. It's all memorized, really. But there'll be a couple of technical difficulties I have to iron out. And then the Beethoven is the last one. I basically absorbed the backbone of it. I know how to play it pretty much. There's nothing that I have difficulty with anymore. It's just getting it all up to tempo and playing it through. But yeah. So I recommend 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, whatever time you have, spend the first third or quarter doing sight reading and technique, or whatever your weak points, whatever you want to work on is, and then spend the rest on repertoire. At least for a classical, standard musician. If you're learning to play by ear, I guess you do, instead of sight reading and technique, well, you maybe still do technique, but you do ear training, and then you'd work on repertoire. But you kind of work on weak points or things you want to bring up, like the basics, and then you work on repertoire. At least that's how I think you should do it. And yeah, so that's as far as practice routine goes. How did I learn for the whole first year? So first 3 months, I literally just used Jane's piano tutorials exclusively almost. So after day 4, I got bored of Alison Sparrow's piano beginner book, which was good, but then I just wanted to play some real music, so I used YouTube tutorials to learn Mad World and Fur Elise, and then I discovered Jane's piano tutorials, where she basically has so many pieces requested over the years of just her sight reading them very slowly and literally just copying her hand movements. And I think I would use online audio clips or recordings online to get an idea of the dynamics, which is probably how I got away with not sounding too robotic, I hope. And then after that, I knew that to play these pieces I aspired to learn, so fantasy impromptu and things in the future, like Chopin Ballade or some Liszt etude, I'd have to learn to read. I'd have to be comfortable at reading. So I was like, let's invest in a piano teacher, learn how to read. So he helped me read from the very beginning, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, using John Thompson's easiest piano courses, like books 1, 2. And then after that, I could move to the books Piano Classics to Moderns, where you're playing real music, but it's like Mozart Sonatina when he was 6. But it's real music and it sounds good and it's fun. So that's why I think having a teacher at the beginning is important, because that early learning stage is quite hard, especially if you don't have guidance. But it's definitely possible, but it's still hard if you don't have guidance. And then I worked with him with reading, but I kept myself motivated by still learning stuff from Jane's channel for until month 6, the Chopin Nocturne in C sharp minor. And then when my reading was kind of getting to a point where I could read most things, it was just not that fluent, I kind of just stopped using her tutorials to make sure that I was fully progressing onto reading properly, really. And yeah, we worked through classics to moderns after the John Thompson's easiest piano course to learn to read, and then I spent a lot of time on this book, the Sonatina album. So that's got Mozart K545 and some the easy Beethoven sonata. I forgot what it's in G major. Where the hell is it? But yeah, Opus 49 number 2 and Opus 49 number 1, like there's still there's still music and they still sound great, but it was they're definitely like a step down from like proper sonatas. I don't know why I'm showing you this really, but you know, standard stuff. But so this was really like Clementi, Mozart. This was the stuff that got me started really. And then after that, I had my foundation of reading. I was able to kind of branch out and do more ambitious things like my Chopin projects. But even though the impromptu was kind of a big stretch, I just wanted to prove that I can do it to myself. And I think I did an okay job, but now I don't really want to touch it anymore. Hopefully in the future I'll go back to it and play it really well. But for now, that was it. Also, like piano classics, range of grades from like grades like 3 to 7 maybe. It's just a range of stuff. Like it's got Moonlight Sonata Movement 1 in here, and that really famous Gymnopedie, whatever you call it, by Eric Satie? I don't know. But famous stuff like that, but really simple pieces. So once you've got out of the beginning stage, you can kind of do whatever you want really, but obviously if you have a teacher, they'll guide you of, you know, to get the right kind of full course meal of classic, romantic, and you know, your old school, like Bach. Forgotten the name for some reason. What the hell? For whatever reason, I forgot. Romantic, classic, and Baroque. God damn it, I'm stupid. Anyway, so that was really all I did. And then kind of progressed on from there. Obviously, not everyone's going to be able to progress as quick as that, but that's how you kind of, the progression happened for me is John Thompson's Easiest Piano Course, classics to moderns, and then Sonatina album. And then just, I was playing Chopin for a while. And then my new teacher in uni was like, why don't we try and play some, prepare you for grade 8 syllabus? And I was like, yeah, okay. So now I'm just playing 3 pieces from each era, Baroque, classical, romantic, from the grade 8 syllabus. There you go. And then it just has a bunch of choices for each era, but I chose Bach, Beethoven, and Chopin, obviously. And yeah, that's pretty much it. These are some other books I have. Joplin Rags, because Joplin's awesome. I haven't actually learned any of these yet, because I played Maple Leaf Rag from memory, so I can still play it, but I have no idea what I'm doing, because it's all muscle memory. But I want to relearn it and like digest it properly now that I can read, and obviously learn Entertainer and all the other rags because they're really fun. But I don't really have the time to do them. I think I'll start one soon, but yeah. Anyway, Scarlatti sonatas. There's like some grade 7 ones in here. This was between my Sonatina album and the grade 8 stuff. I hadn't really done much Baroque, so my teacher said, let's do some Scarlatti. And now I've done some Bach as well. Chopin impromptus, literally purchased this just to play Fantasy Impromptu. And I literally thought it was impossible at first. I was like, I can't do this. But I stuck with it. But I kept trying, and once you get over the polyrhythm, it's fine. Like, I searched online for like help with polyrhythm and got some ideas. So I'm just checking the time, and just kind of went from there really. Maybe in the future I'll actually play through the whole book, but I only wanted to learn Fancy Impromptu. But yeah, and then my favourite book, my baby, I love you, Chopin. But yeah, one day learning all the nocturnes, but so far 4 down. Quite a few to go. But yeah, those are all my books. I have a couple at home, but those are the main ones I use exclusively really right now is the ABRSM grade 8 syllabus. But I probably learn another Chopin nocturne this year. And yeah, So now with the remaining time, the last 10 minutes, I will go through the questions from Instagram and YouTube. Some of them are probably things already answered, so if I have, I'll just go through them really quickly. Instagram, dean.grdk asks, which piano study book did you use to learn reading notes? So John Thompson's Easiest Piano Course. If you're on your own, you could learn like Alfred's Adult All-in-One, or Faber, I think, the American version, like the adult piano course. They take you like all the way through, but to learn to read, like learn middle C, learn that ledger lines and spaces, they're all a specific note on the keyboard, and just go from there really. Uh, and at the beginning, I did use Alison Sparrow's piano course #1, but she puts the notes in, so you're not really reading. But it's a good way of kind of playing, making nice sounds faster without having to kind of figure out what the notes are. But I wouldn't recommend writing them in because it kind of just handicaps you really. Westcad Music asks, is Jane's channel enough for a good as a good piano teacher? Sorry, Jane, no. Jane's piano teacher is excellent and amazing, and she is amazing, because if it wasn't for her, I might not have been here. But she has so much resource for you to just learn how to play. If you don't have a teacher and you just want to learn for fun, you can learn these pieces by literally copying her movements and figuring out what notes she's playing from her top-down view camera. But if you want to really get into piano playing and understand what you're doing, you need more than Jane's piano tutorials. Though she does do sight reading tutorials, I think learning theory and things outside, you need to use more than Jane's piano tutorial. But Jane's piano tutorials is excellent for like a starting point if you just want to learn how to play music. But again, I would always recommend getting a teacher to start. Puan asked, did you ever know about or learn piano before you started? Nope. I'm not even sure I even heard of piano in my childhood. I think that's why it never happened for so long, because I was never exposed to a piano for so long. But then once I was getting into like piano music from video games and just classical music, I loved it so much, and I was like, this is amazing. And I don't know why I hadn't heard it really before, just being an ignorant kid playing too many video games probably, and not spending enough time learning a musical instrument. But so I didn't really have any exposure to a piano before. How did you learn piano for the whole year progress? The story explained. I just explained it. But that was from Stacey Antonio and Jemai Miller, 1231. Lenouche NA asks, how much time did it take to read sheet music? I mean, I'm still learning to this day to get better, but I think it got to a point where I was like, I'm okay at reading now. A couple of months. John Thompson's Easiest Piano Course helped me to read first and foremost. And then by the time I was on the Sonatina album, I pretty much had it. It was just the higher register or the lower register of notes. I wasn't used to reading those ledger lines, but you just figure out from the check marks, you know what note is on this ledger line. You figure out what it is, and the more you play those notes, the more you know what they are. But I'd say it took me quite a few months, probably about 3 months, 4 months, to get to a point where I was like, yeah, I can read, okay. But reading is always an ongoing process, because I want to be able to like sight read like a virtuoso, but not yet. Okay, I think that is for Instagram and YouTube. Community tab, I had a couple of questions, so try and go through these fairly quickly. Joseph asks, what is the piece of music you're playing in the very beginning of the first video? To Zanarkand from Final Fantasy X by Nobuo Uematsu. Amazing piece. I need to relearn that. That Weird Asian asks, I'm teaching myself and I have absolutely no experience. I can't afford a tutor and I want to learn how to play by reading sheet music. What should I do? Use all the online resources you can. There's so many YouTube videos that teach you how to read, like what middle C is and then the ledger lines and everything. As soon as you understand that each line or space and those dots on that page represent one note on the keyboard, then you'll be okay. But once you've learned that, maybe buy one of those adult all-in-one piano course books. where they kind of teach you how to play up into a decent reading level, and then just keep playing pieces at like that level 1 grade until you improve. So as long as you keep reading, you'll start to just improve. The only thing is, without a teacher, you will have to try extra hard to make sure you're not making any mistakes, like technically, or paying attention to dynamics. A teacher can tell you, you're not studying the dynamics, and then you do it. When you're on your own, you don't care because you're doing it on your own. So you have to be more self-aware, I guess. You have to be able to, make more effort to research. But there are like successful self-taught pianists, like the Ish, the anime pianist, is like amazing, and he's like self-taught as far as I know. Did Friedrich asked, did you do any technical exercises like scales, etudes within your progress? Yep. I went through all the scales and arpeggios with my teacher in the 1 year progress video. I couldn't play the arpeggios very well, but I learned them all to a very slow level, and I learned all the scales, major and minor, melodic and harmonic, and just all the scales, yeah. So I did have a basic understanding through the first year. Those are very important to start, honestly. Do your scales, at least when you're starting out, and then screw them. No, just kidding. Don't do that. Donna asked, I just want to know if you started mimicking the music through video, or did you study some theories or technique first? For the first 3 months, it was just imitating hand movements and synthesia videos from Jane's piano tutorials on the internet. So I had no idea what I was doing, really. I was just copying what the notes were being played and listening to recordings to kind of get an idea of the theme and dynamics. Vinod asks, hey bro, will you teach me? Not yet. Maybe when I graduate, I will teach you. When I become a piano teacher, but no, not now. Monty G asks, he's been recently getting back into the piano, practicing hard. I'm curious whether you do or do not experience any pain at all, especially because you work long hours. So I've never had really any pain or discomfort ever. Touch wood, I don't. But I think a lot of it's just down to technique, and if you have good technique and you always try and play in the most effortless way possible for your fingers and movements, you'll be okay. Like arpeggios and stuff should all be very natural. It shouldn't be clunky. But I think maybe some of that attention to the detail came from my fitness background, personal training, because you're always trying to perfect the movements and move your body in the most efficient way possible to preserve energy and not get injured. So always try and play in the most relaxed and efficient way, the most comfortable way you can for your hands, and you shouldn't get injured. Did I work with a teacher about my choreography, my hand movements, because they were quite good? No. So my teacher taught me the very basics, but everything else was really just on my own, self-studying online using, Josh Wright Piano TV, Paul Barton. Like he had videos, I think Josh Wright, like flat versus curved fingers for black keys and stuff like that. So the resources are there to learn. How many pieces do you work at on one time? Around 3. Baroque, classical, romantic. When you work with your repertoire, do you listen to recordings to help you shape the song? Yep. Some more than others, it depends. If there's something I really want to learn, I'll probably listen to it all the time because I love it anyway. If it's something that I'm just kind of learning because my teacher told me, I'll listen to it to get an idea and then just start learning it. But at this point, I can actually probably learn pieces fine without listening to them, but hearing them does give you an advantage, I think, in how quickly you can learn them, because you know how it's supposed to sound, so you can use your ear to help you as well as reading. But yeah, I do. CJ says, how's uni going so far? It's going great. Are there any pieces you have in mind as a goal for future semesters? Right now, the only goal I have is to try and do my grade 5 theory and grade 8 practical, hopefully at the end of this year or beginning of next year. But like for this year, the only piece that I want to and will learn is the Nocturne in D flat major by Chopin. Everything else is just extra credit, but I have like loads of long-term goals. Like I want to learn Moonlight Sonata, the whole thing, before I graduate uni and play it, hopefully at recital Chopin Ballade #1. That's like the ultimate goal. But as far as right now, it's just the Nocturne and D flat major I'll learn for this year. Maybe I'll make a video on that one. David Robertson says, wondered, knowing what I know now, would I do anything different? I would say maybe being more efficient with the beginning time and get a teacher, but then if I didn't self-learn on my own and learn those more difficult pieces from memory, I don't know if I would have been motivated to go through Mary Had a Little Lamb and all that beginning reading piano stage. So I don't think I would have changed anything really. I guess, yeah, just learn to read a bit quicker, not be so lazy, and try not to read and try and learn how to read quicker. Sorry. Okay. Joshua said, what songs would you recommend to people to play that are at average or advanced area? I would say, I don't really know because it depends on who you are, and it's all variable on like what your level is. But I like to use Henley. If you type in like Henley, they do all the classical like gradings. It goes from 1 to 9. I can kind of get an idea of how difficult it's going to be. So, or use the ABRSM grade. So I was always using things as a benchmark. So when I played to Zanakin, I was like, I guess this is like a moderate difficulty, because Jane says on her piano tutorials is like level 5 or 6 out of 10. So I was like, this is average level. So anything around 5 or 6 from Jane's scale I could do. So she put Nocturne in like E flat major, Opus 9 #2 as medium as well. And I could kind of tell how technically demanding it was going to be. But now I use like Henley. I'll be like, okay, 1 to 3 is easy, 4 to 6 is medium, and then 7 to 9 is like extremely difficult. But there's so much variance between those. But if you're intermediate, advanced, then I guess you'd be looking at Henley level 4, 5, 6, 7. But just try and find what you're playing now and compare it to the grades of other pieces if you can. If it's like anime and video game music, you can't really do that. So I'm not sure. You have to kind of figure it out on your own, I think. Roni asks how many hours I practice. I've already said, but time is limited. So what should she do? So if you have like 1 hour, I'd still do what I did, like scales and sight reading and then repertoire, but you just divide it. So if I use a quarter of or a third of my time, so of 3 hours, 1 hour to do sight reading and scales and stuff, if you were only doing an hour, then you'd probably do 20 minutes sight reading and scales, so 10 minutes each, and then you use 40 minutes differently, really. But yeah, that is pretty much it for that. Jordan Francisco asks, the best way to start step by step online, is there an outline to follow? I'd say learn your scales and arpeggios, learn sufficient theory, learn how to read if you want to play by reading. If not, just play by ear, learn how to just use the online resources, use Synthesia if you want, Synthesia, whatever. Jane's piano tutorials is great, obviously, but there's no like right way to do piano. There's so many ways you can do it, so I can't say which is best, but learn the foundations, so scales and arpeggios and theory, understand what's going on, and then you're good. And I think that covers pretty much everything. Oh yeah, and the last thing maybe is, like, how did I have like a million different pianos in the video? The grand piano wasn't mine. That was in Texas when we went to a family holiday. They had a Steinway. That was out of tune. But the Yamaha U2 I bought with my own money because I was a personal trainer and self-employed. So I was working and I had money. And then I used like all my money on a piano. And then I part exchanged it for a Feuerich that was brand new, so that I could just have a brand new upright that was mine, because the action on the U2 was quite heavy. And yeah, so I only have the digital piano. I actually have it here. It's a Hanon. And my upright piano at home. And now in uni, I just use the grands or the uprights in the practice rooms. But yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything. If there's any good questions that I didn't answer, just leave them in the comments and I'll answer them. Sorry it's such a long video, but I hope that answers everything. And yeah, Happy New Year to everyone, and hopefully my next video will be whatever, a new piano like cover of a piece or just whatever. So thanks guys.